Hello everyone, how you doing today? Thought I'd show you some updates to the Cerberus. I did manage to get the rest of the back legs finished up. Kind of take a look at what that's looking like. I could be missing textures here and there yet. I'll try to detail stuff a little bit more, and I kind of been working on the back of the ship as well, trying to get all that dialed in. Couple things that were changed from the original is the original had two of these medium or large CV thrusters on the front legs only and nothing on the back for strafing. The new one I kind of balanced it off, so it still has the two thrusters, except there's a set of them over here and a set over here, and they're actually at the same block row height across the board too. That was just a little cosmetic thing, trying to dial that part in. Most angles on this have been switched to a 22.5 degree angle instead of 45 like the original. That was just another little cosmetic thing I wanted to do to it, similar to that of what the Persis CV2 had done to it. I got rid of the stairs over here and in place put in ladders instead. Not like you ever need to go down here. Oh, I gotta texture that yet. And I added another turret position back over here as well because these new back legs are a little bit bigger, I would say, than the originals. Gave me some more surface area to put another turret. In fact, I could have probably snuck one in this location here if I modified the blocks a little bit there. But I think that works. One issue I'm having right now, and one other cosmetic change or change I'm doing to it, is inside the hangar here. The original Cerberus had the hangar floor up one block row higher, and that caused a waste of space out to drop down these to these side hangar doors so I could get the ramps attached to them. So I had to make some ramps or like a ramp area out of blocks here. And then I was looking at the bottom of this and I'm like, why did I do that in the first place? As the ship clearly comes down actually 2 blocks below that point and many other sections of the ship, it seemed kind of pointless for me to have the hangar floor at that height. So on the new one, I lowered it so everything matches when you come in, which will maximize the amount of space you have in the hangar for parking stuff. But then I've got this other issue, and it has to do with a lack of a ramp of the right size. So I have to use the largest of the ramps to even get to the ground at where the landing gear would come down to. And the only one available are these width of 3. They don't have a width of 1 like they do with the ramp, the one smaller sized ramps. So I got to figure out what I'm doing with that because I want to get this area here dressed up. Taking a look at the original, what I ended up doing here is I built a block ramp to connect these down, but they were still the same size I'm using on the new one, except I squashed it, so I put them all together so it didn't actually have the full width getting into the hangar door, at least up the ramp. And that was my solution, I guess. I may have to do the same thing again, not necessarily because I want to, but it's just there's missing a part to make these ramps work with that size door. Yeah, I don't know any other way around it besides leaving big sliver chunks like what's going on here in between it. That typically works, but I can't imagine anybody in their right mind would ever set up an actual ramp on anything in the real world that had big wide gaps open in it like that. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I'll probably fix that up as well. On the next thing, I wanted to show you this. This is where probably most of my time was done. Here, let me, I notice that it's getting darker here as I'm going. So this, I named this one the Glaive. So it's the Skaar Glaive. The Glaive was another name in a list of Skaar names that were suggested by comments. And so anyway, I know I showed the outside of this already, at least to where I had it done at. Now I made a lot of body tweaks and changes along the way, and I've got the entire interior done now too, and the bottom, well, basically everything. So here, let me get out of, let's go take a walk inside here. So I did an extra door over the top plus the ramp just to give it a little bit of protection there. So inside the ship, you've got 16K storage, 8K ammo. I got all the parts just kind of lined up on the inside. Now I'm actually using CPU tier blocks as some sort of deco block in here, kind of, along these rows here, so you can gain access to everything, including the core, the CPU tier blocks, your warp drive. The shield is up in the ceiling over here. Pentaxa tank right below it. I got the fuel tanks, some of the fuel tanks. Now there's 4 fuel tanks here. It has 6. Maybe it'll have a couple more before it's done. I've got CPU available. And then I also crammed in the O2 tanks over there. Wi-Fi, detector, fridge, air, constructor, armor locker. It's pretty much got everything. It's all tested. Everything seems to work good. And of course, 2 passenger seats. Anyway, oh yeah, and then the top mount cockpit over there. So I played a little bit with LCDs on that as well. Did a little marking on the top and used some weird little thin blocks on the sides to kind of make a formation up there. At nighttime, interior looks about like this. I'll try to get some decent lighting in there. Bright enough so you can see everything, but not like glaring. And flying around, I'll just go to third person here. You can see it's got a lot of strafing thrust to this ship, and I'm thinking, I don't normally fly in third person like this, but I think it should be pretty good at being able to dodge fire, because it can kind of like turn directions quickly. It can back up pretty quickly, and it's got a lot of forward thrust as well and a lot of lift thrust. So I think everything about this works pretty good. Flying from inside. I think it's pretty agile for its size. Won't say, you know, of course there's faster ships out there. At some of the schematics, well, at looking at the inside of the ship through the blocks here. So I've got no parts on the front side of this ship. It's set up a lot like the Skaar Ripper tank, where you've got just solid blocks here, except for the parts that are embedded, like the Gatling guns. It gets through some rows of blocks here, and then you got one open row of blocks, and then beyond that it gets into this big thruster in the middle, and then there's another firewall behind that, and that's basically where you get to the interior space. So even though the ship is pretty long, the interior actually starts right at the front side of where this drone hatch is. My only dilemma on this ship right now, and it's probably I'd have to reconfigure stuff if I decided to do this, is I did not put in a power mode. And if you notice, there's no internal switches. I've been setting up like the 2 switches in signals over here, so you got a drone hatch and exterior lights, but I was thinking about adding a power mode as well to this. Also, you can take a look at the CPU. Despite this ship being kind of big-ish, it appears that you could build something a little bigger yet. So that is kind of cool. So this didn't like max out CPU even as what it is. I guess it's not super big at all, but it's decent sized. It's a little bigger than some other ships, but this also will fit in a 5x9 hangar door as well, so you don't have to have a giant hangar door for this ship. Oh, I kind of parked a little close there. But it is definitely a little bigger than the Dominator. A little wider too, but still it's good with a 5x9 hangar door. Now the Cerberus has a 7x13 hangar door on it on the back, and then 5x9 hangar doors on the two sides. So that would be able to accommodate that fine, but the Raider also would be able to accommodate the ship fine. So same as the Crawler for a base. So I just wanted to kind of show you that. I'll be working on this some more. Probably the next part of this, I want to just kind of finish up some detailing on the back part of this, see if I can get this tweaked out a little bit better. And then I'm going to hit the engineering area to install the new parts. Now that I got all the thrusters installed in this, and it's been definitely upgraded from the first one. A little bit more strafing thrust, a lot more lift thrust, more reverse thrust. Doesn't have any more forward thrust at the time. I don't really think it needs it, but I'll have to evaluate that later. And I avoided using any of the extra large thrusters in this as well. I did use some of those on the Persis CV2, but it's a bigger ship yet. Now, one thing I did say originally that I wanted to try to keep this at the same size class. After redoing the body, it's shot up a little bit above size class 5, just due to the block changes. And I did add a couple more parts and more thrusters and things too, but they don't really add that much to the size class. I don't think I'm going to be able to pull off keeping this at 5. And I realized that the original Cerberus, it's lacking all the detail. And when you start adding that detail, even though it's just block work, it does ramp up the size class quite a bit. Now, some things that can change in here though too, because when I built this ship originally, I did not use a different material for interior blocks. So you can see like all your internal floor blocks and everything else in here are all combat steel. Once I get into the interior, a lot of that would probably be replaced with carbon substrate, which should be a reduction in size class. But then again, I'm also going to try to make it look prettier, and that'll probably up the size class again. So it's kind of a trade-off. So yeah, next area is to redo this engineering section. I'm going to try to get all the parts back in the same area. I'm going to look at how vulnerable it is to the outside from all different directions. See if I can maybe make it a little tougher if possible. Oh, I still got to finish up this area here. It was also suggested in comments to add mining to this. Now that is something I did do with the Cerberus NG, and I'm thinking I could do that here as well. One thing I was thinking about doing though is removing these big launchers right here in front, because I've got extra room out here over in the side legs now. If I did remove those, I could set up kind of a tight formation of mining drills probably out in this area here. And you want them tight anyway. You don't want them like separated on the sides like this. I kind of learned my lesson with the Raider where I had the mining drills on either side of the ship. I think they're not engaged right now, but that kind of they're too far apart, and it makes kind of a weird formation in what you're trying to mine, where they've been better off closer up. This still works, don't get me wrong. It's just probably not as well if they were in a tighter location. So that is another planned mod I was thinking about doing, is getting those out of there and getting those moved out to the sides over here. And also too, I would, if I'm gonna just go crazy, I was half tempted to add in 2 more of these, what are these? Pulse lasers, so it has the full 6. I mean, if you're gonna do one shot, you might as well do six rounds as opposed to 2 or 4 rounds. That will just do more damage in the same amount of time. Excuse me. So that's about where I'm at right now on everything, and I think this may be the next release. So next Sunday I plan on releasing this. The live stream yesterday got canceled, but we're gonna do it Wednesday again. I'm gonna spawn this in game and try it out, see how it works. I'm crossing my fingers. I think it's built good. I think everything's tough. I think it should do the role of what I want it to be, and that is more of a SV tank. It's the first one I've ever tried. Well, obviously this is pretty new to the game anyway, having turrets being able to mount on a SV, so that was not an option with older ships. But I think that should be kind of nice too. And there's a lot of hit points up here. I'm assuming that the AI would probably be targeting what it sees first. That would probably be some of these front turrets and maybe these front Gatling guns up over here. And that's okay, because all that damage and splash damage should keep anything away from the inside of the ship, or where all your vital components would be, which are much further back behind a couple walls of blocks. And on the sides too, of course I always worry about this, and now I've got a solid block row here behind all these thrusters and a solid block row in between the thrusters. But then there's the tier blocks beyond that. They're kind of offset a little bit. I mean, if these side thrusters were blown up, what kind of damage does that cause? And would that be able to take out like the tier blocks? Or on this case, I got the core also over there, and I'm trying to keep this stuff separated as much as I can. Now, getting the core from the front, though, there's a lot in your way to do that. So I'm kind of confident that you shouldn't be able to be shut down somehow from the front. But if you took a huge impact on the side and it took out some of these thrusters here, that's possible. But even these thrusters, I guess 850 hit points on that one. One thing I like about this giant thruster in the middle here is the fact that it's got 3,200 hit points. That is, for when you're talking a hardened steel block of maximum of 200 hit points, 3,200 hit points right in the center before you get to the inside is quite a lot. And if this gets taken out, you're still in business. You still got enough lift thrust to get around. Now, if you're carrying a lot of weight at the same time, that could be problematic. But I would imagine that since this is really made to engage POIs and stuff like that, or enemy capital ships, that you probably would go to your hopefully victim, not like weighted up to the hilt, and when on the way back is when you would try to fill up your cargo with the loot and salvage that you get from the POI you're hitting. So that's kind of the thing. I'm just using a lot of these parts. I don't have any decoy parts in here. A PvP trick like embedding a turret or something underneath some blocks. I didn't do that. I never really wanted to do something like that. It seems kind of wasteful. I'd rather have all guns being able to fire on its target rather than taking one and disabling it and putting it behind some blocks. Although I can see the bonus of that. Now, PvP and PvE are very different, where, if you're fighting the ship in PvP, you'd probably be targeting the back and sides of it, maybe the top. But when you're actually taking this in PvE, which it was designed for, the front should be facing the target. The front can take in a lot of abuse. And where the cockpit's located, it's really far back from the front, and would be a very hard place for the POI to hit unless you like flew really crazily and just set yourself up to get hit up there. But I'm thinking that this should be pretty cool. And this is an armored cockpit too, so it's 1,110 hit points. Not the strongest of the armored cockpits, but I used it because of its low profile. It's the only cockpit that doesn't go up 3 blocks, and I did not want that bulgy. I tried other cockpits and it just looked terrible, especially in the back. Now, obviously, if I wasn't going for function only, I would have probably put a cockpit somewhere up on the front of this ship, and this probably wouldn't have been there either. But Yeah, well, it's designed for a purpose, and I didn't have a new ship like this in this class range at all. The Dominator is kind of a dual. It's a fighter miner combo. Um, so it's not really like and in the live stream too, I was really surprised what happened. I don't even know how it happened, and it really kind of annoyed me. But I was flying around. We were fighting that capital ship. Must have took a hit somewhere, and it destroyed this cockpit somehow. Even though it left this in front of it, I hate that. These are like. Oh, wait a minute. Why is that 200 hit points? Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, these are the shuttered windows. I don't know. It's just sometimes, and also too, like reports, and it happened to me too on the Skaar Bago, that you take some side damage to here, like, and say it's one block row. The blocks might get dented a little bit, but it'll destroy like a full warp core on the inside of the wall. In all reality, I just don't think things would work that way. If you didn't get the hull breached, you wouldn't have your parts inside getting blown up. I mean, of course, if you're dealing with railguns like in the Expanse and they go right through the hull, but then you got an obvious hole in your hull, and it makes sense, right? This game, though, if I were to put like something over here, like say this is all combat steel on the side, if I put a part here, this part on the outside took a hit. Didn't do much damage at all to the combat steel. It could easily blow up the part on the inside of it. That I don't think is right. I think that's something in the game that. I mean, it's a voxel game, and this isn't like reality and everything, so it's excusable. But it's just like to me, it doesn't make any sense. That's not how things work in the real world at all. If your hull is intact, your components on the inside shouldn't get destroyed like that. That's just that makes it really rough, especially when you're trying to make a small ship that's tight. You just with the splash damage you get on enemy fire and the damage amounts they can do versus what the block hit points are, makes everything kind of scary. But I guess that's good. You got to be smart when you're doing this stuff, and we'll see how it goes. Anyway, that's about all I've got for today. One last thing, I did send this to a dev in Elion a little bit ago. Still waiting on some feedback on this. See if they like it or the Skaar in itself. But yeah, I'm just kind of waiting on feedback for that, and haven't really got any yet. So we'll just give it some time and see what happens. Anyway, y'all have yourself a good day. I will talk to you later.